Okay, I'm live.
Okay, I'm in the morning, so good morning, Fred, or
Good
good
morning,
evening,
Richard.
whichever you prefer.
And good to be with you.
Yeah,
We had a little bit of a break last week, but here we are back again, hard charging to see what we can
right,
see what we can discover tonight.
right.
And you, in a little bit of conversation that we had a minute ago, you were talking about perception. Do you want to lay that down?
Yeah, okay. I think that's a good way to start because it's very basic, just to say what we notice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought that perception had to do with an intersection of the five senses, input from the five senses, and then my thoughts about it, which come from my memories and thoughts, what thoughts that elicits. In other words, there's something out there and I interpret it. And that's a perception, and then I'm also saying that I don't know which is which, how much is interpretation and of what I see and how much is, because I don't see how there could be a benchmark so then we don't know, because people have different perceptions than I do, right? But they're looking at the same view, that's the same sunset or the same mountain or the same
Well,
person they're looking at, and they have a different perception. So then we each have different
you have different
interpretations.
perceptions. You have different perceptions because you have different projections. You're each
Right.
projecting you're each projecting your own world, and so that's what you get back. So you
Yeah.
see one thing, somebody else sees another. Um, that's the reason that when we change where we're looking from, meaning are we going to look from this unit, or are we going to look through this unit from the eyes of truth? And when we do that, when we change where we're looking from, then what we look at changes. It really does. I mean, the world will literally rise to meet us, to meet the view, to meet the view. If the view is a large one, if the view is from truth, then we will. That's what we'll find. And if we are looking at it from a limited point of view, like this unit would, that it's that it's a world with um, limited this and limited that, and it's this is bad and that all, and I've come up there with all my preconditions, then that's just what I'm going to find. I'm inventing the world as I go.
Okay, well, so that's kind of what I'm saying, and I'm in that projection part. I'm calling interpretation. Right?
Yeah,
It's
I get that.
exactly what I'm saying, and I would go another way, a little farther, and say there's no turning point for me. I mean, you don't have to say, oh, now I'm awake and now I'm not awake, and before I had all my conditioning, now I'm looking at a larger view, because it always works. As you soften your interpretation, it gradually expands, right?
That's
The
right.
possibilities gradually expand, and I don't try to set up like an end game. Like, okay, when you arrive here, then then it gets infinitely better. I just say it's all gradual, right? And then it's happening right now. You don't have to wait, right? I take the
That's
waiting
right.
game out of it too.
We never have to wait. I mean, that's one of the big or difficulties, the big challenges in spirituality, because I run into it all the time, which is that people are so. It's just a natural thing. I mean, I was too, so I'm not throwing stones like I didn't participate in this, but we just get so sold on a story of future that we completely miss what's happening right now. We can't wake up later, and just as you said, there's no perception later. It's all everything that's happening is happening right now.
Yeah, yeah. So anyhow, to
You always, I
go
love the
deeper
way
into that.
I love the way you go, yeah, yeah, which means it's because it always sounds to me like what you're saying is, yeah, yeah, bullshit. And
No, no, it is. We know that. We've got that covered, right? But I mean, distinctions in a way. Okay, like our interpretation is what we see as our distinctions, right? Distinctions means the words or beliefs, and if it's outside of our belief or our wording, we don't really see it very much, and it doesn't hit the radar. And if it does, we don't have a mechanism to put it in memory. So then I think sometimes a proper distinction, which is a concept basically, or a way of looking at things, or a context, a proper distinction, can expand what you see and how you feel about it, right? And so then I was coming up with this idea that I wanted to make two kinds of perceptions. So one I called centric.
Yeah,
Centric means it has to do with what's here, what's here now. And I can't say that it's reality because, again, it's mixed up with interpretation. But it seems to have to do with my kid in school and my job and what I'm going to have for breakfast. And it seems to have to do with, like, what's here now, you know. My car's working, not working. I need to go to get a tank of gas today, or all those things are centric because they're really, in a way, you could say they're happening, right? And so then, as the other side of that would be an acentric perception. And an acentric perception, sure, it has feelings and interpretations and projections, but it's not really here too much. It's like, well, even if you say that, I don't know, like spirituality, a lot of it is not really, it's an idea that, you know, comes from the scriptures and so on, but it might not show up in life, or it shows up in strange ways, right?
Well, spirituality doesn't come out of scripture. Scripture comes out of spirituality. I mean, that's the truth of it. That's so it and genuine spirit, authentic spirituality can't not show up in life because that's what it is. I mean,
that's what it is. Yeah, but okay, like we come in the center. We weren't the guys that were 5,000, you know, 1,000 years ago that were having a spiritual experience and writing about it. Mm-hmm. We're the guys that read all those books, and so we're coming in the center somehow and trying to projection. We're projecting left and right, trying to figure out if that's here now, you know. And somehow we don't really get it, that this is it. You know, this is my life, is it, you know. It didn't write that. They didn't write it that way. They wrote it that.
Well, you know, if you go back, you know, if you actually, they did write it that way. If you go back, and I mean, it's not always clear to us, but I can tell you that through awake eyes, you can go back and look at Hindu writings, and it's incredible how well they got it. I mean, they got it just right, and it's all in there. The problem is that with most spiritual pointers is that we can't actually use them until after they're of no use to us until we're already awake, and at that point we can use the seed.
That's how they're useless, right? Yeah. Because once we're awake, we're on our own wheels, right?
Yeah. So what we do is we use those. Once we wake up, we use those things for confirmation. It's a way of just and for confirmation and for expansion of our understanding. That's what the beauty of those things is about. I love what Nisargadatta used to say is that, you know, he called scripture hearsay.
Hearsay. Yeah, no, I agree. You know, because that would fall into acentric perception.
Yeah.
Right. In other words, you tell me a story about your life, and that's an acentric perception. For me, it's a thought.
Right. Yes, yes.
And so then, if you look at the crux of teaching, what's the crux? Like how to turn an acentric perception into a centric perception. Like how to turn thought into experience. And that's all about teaching.
And the way
anything, right?
That's true. The way that, and the problem is that talking, I get this completely what you're saying, and it is how to turn that thought into an experience. And the problem is the thing that the mechanism by which we use, generally speaking, to affect that is we use language. We use words, and what we're doing is we're getting lost in the layers of trying to transfer my experience as awakeness, as conscious awakeness right this moment, and for me to try and share that with somebody, I can't tell them about it. Nobody can tell them about it. So this is the reason that what I do is I show it to them, because that showing it to them does exactly what you just said. It takes that acentric perception, which is the thoughts, and it turns it into centric experience. In other words, it's show and tell. Talk and tell does not work. I mean, I can't say it doesn't work. I'm a product of it, and there are a bunch of great teachers who do. I mean, many of whom I love and admire, who are doing a wonderful job talking about it. But I still notice the problem is that the majority of the people listening to them will not wake up. That's just the truth. The odds are not.
Okay, like in the mundane, we have on-the-job training. You can either go to college or you go to on-the-job training. Or actually, after you go to college, you go to on-the-job training, right? And so then you're not talking about it; you're just doing it. You're befuddling through it, you know.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect. And the problem here is that there is no medium like that. There's no there's no OJT. There's no on-the-job training, and there's no on-the-job training either. Well, I hear that there is, but I wouldn't have much faith in it. In teacher training, you know, I mean, so much of this occurs spontaneously. That, I mean, how the hell can you teach that? I mean, can you teach somebody how to handle a situation that hasn't happened yet? You know, it's for everything.
Well, you know, everybody says it's spontaneous and they're hooked to source and all that. But really, when you listen to what they say repeat the same crap over and over and over again. When I say crap, it's like they use the same metaphors and stuff like that. And even the old oldies, like the wave in the ocean or something like that.
Right. I know.
And I mean, Jesus, and everybody says, yeah, of course, the wave in the ocean. I get it, you know. Totally zero, you know. So then I don't really agree that they're spontaneous, you know? So okay, I'm talking now, and I haven't thought about it. I didn't write down an outline. I don't know what I didn't pre-plan it, but it's all coming out of my, you know, my belief structures, right? And my my sense of awareness and, you know, my earlier analysis. It just is all there. So I'm really just talking out of my conditioning, not out of any kind of I don't have to elevate it and say that I'm talking out of a spontaneous connection with the source.
So do you actually know, or do you know what you're telling me is true? Did you know that this is all coming out of your head?
Okay, well, I mean, do I know that it's true? It's only my experience, you know. If I take away all the concepts, what's left? I say that I need the five senses, or at least hearing and sight and feeling, to have to be here, right? And I said that earlier. I think I said when you go under anesthetic for a surgery, you're not tired. But when they shut off all the five windows, you're gone, right?
Yeah, right.
And so then somehow, for me, then that just means like, okay, the five senses are up key to be awakeness, to be you know, like the waking state. And I don't know. I don't think you can really shut them off in some ways. Oh, well, with drugs you can. I was in a soundproof booth once, because when I was in the Army, they had a soundproof booth. It's a big, thick, walled thing with cone sponges and stuff, and that absorb it. There's absolutely no reflection of sound. But there wasn't quiet at all. My heart was beating a mile a minute, and I could hear my nerves go. I could hear, there was all kinds of sounds. My breathing was like a huge fan or something. You know? Like there was no way that it would shut off.
I think we have a very interesting. There's a very interesting gap here between, I think, what I'm saying and what you're saying, or at least what I'm thinking and what you're thinking, or perhaps it's our experience. But what we want to see, I mean, from my standpoint, is that when you're talking about that I need these five senses, I mean, honestly, then you're talking about Richard, aren't you? I mean, the Richard character needs five senses.
Well, like when I don't have the five senses, I'm absent. There's an absence.
So are you absent, or is Richard absent?
Everything. There's no perception.
Okay.
So whatever it is, whatever is happening, okay, there's some kind of breathing going on and pumping of blood and all that stuff, but there's no perception. And so then it's like I lost a day.
So but is your idea that these? Let me ask you this: is it your idea that these perceptions are tools for you personally?
Well, they're not tools for you.
Well, yes, they
You
are.
don't even know what I'm doing except 1 hour every 2 weeks. You don't know a thing about me, right?
Yeah,
Except for 1 hour every 2 weeks, right? Or like every week or whenever we show up again.
but
But I mean, who are they for? Like, okay, you have to have a asexual perception and say, oh, there's the greater whole.
yes,
Sure, let it be the greater whole. So what? The greater whole's playing through me, and the greater whole didn't say analyze me as the greater whole. It just said run your life and do your thing. You know, you're programmed to work in a certain frequency of light and a certain frequency of sound and a certain time interval. You're programmed to do all that. So accept all those things and run a life.
so that's what you mean. This is, again, it's just a little gap between the way we see things. So your idea is that you're running that life.
Okay, now let me look at it. Let me lay down one more distinction here then, and we'll see.
Okay.
Okay. So then we say there's a moment to moment, right? But in a way, I don't think we really experience a moment.
Oh no, I don't say there's a moment. I say there's a so-called moment.
So-called moment, or there's now, right?
Yeah,
there's
because
now.
This unit experiences moments like the frames of a movie, but but it's not. That doesn't mean they're actually moments or frames. As you said, there's only now.
There's only now, but I don't believe we experience now, or we don't know if we do, or we don't know, how much of that is projection and how much of that is now, right? And so then what I'm saying is, like, let's say there's two things. There's the moment, which in a way is hypothetical, because if we're not experiencing it, we say there's a moment, right? We say there's now, but we're never in the now, right? Or whatever. And then I call it the interval. There's the interval. And the interval means like it's a projection of something called time, and it's like standing back from the five senses and making an interpretation out of it and categorizing that in the memory. It just happens all automatically.
So
basically that human being lives in the interval. And we say that if there's an interval, there must be a moment, because there just must be. It's inside the interval, right? But anyhow, we don't know about that too much, So then I say, well, why not just live the interval? Why not just live in the interval and do it in the best way, right?
So,
okay.
I mean, that's an approach. It's just that when you say we that we stand back from the five senses and this and that and the other, it just sounds to me again like what you're saying is that Richard stands back from the senses and analyzes all this stuff and
well, who knows who does it, but any kind of thought process, is a standing back.
So right? but is it? But yes, but is it? It's any kind of thought process is. But are you actually standing back and analyzing your perceptions, or are they? Because I mean, these perceptions. Let me tell you how I think about it. That'd be the easiest way.
Okay. Yeah.
So the way that I see it is that this is a perceiving unit. It's a sensing unit. It's a sensing unit for it, or wholeness, or consciousness, or whatever we want to call it tonight. It doesn't make any difference. But this is a camera and its difficulty is that this camera thinks it's a photographer, and so it believes that all of this is happening for the sake of this center. But in the absence of, but there's no real center here. I mean, there simply is no center here. Because it's just when this thing is being looked through, then suddenly we can see with great clarity that this thing right here, the what we call Fred, is just another unit in the room. It's not even a special unit. It's not a, it's just another unit in the space. So there is no center. And without a center, we don't have a benchmark. See, that's the difference. Is, for instance, I can tell you right now, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what I am. And I have no idea what any of this is, where it is, what it's for. I, I don't actually know any of that. I can certainly have, you know, Fredness is certainly happy to offer any number of interpretations and then opinions and all of that. But I don't actually know, because what I am, you know, we're talking about the language of awakening, sort of, but from where I'm coming from, what I really am is prior to language. What I really am is, I mean, I'm prior to language. That's the reason the Tao Te Ching says that the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao, because I am this, and when it's wonderful to know that I'm not other than this. I'm certainly not confined or limited to being this, but I am this, and that's really hunky dory. But I don't know what this is. You see, that's the irony when we wake up, is that we find out at last. You know, we find out sort of who we are, but we don't know what that is.
So that's kind of like a misnomer. Like, we really don't find out who we are. We find out who we aren't.
Well,
find out who we aren't.
Well,
and then it's an internal question, like who we are. If it's actually an inane question, because like it's not there, right?
Yeah. Well,
so, like, why keep asking it? Just say, who am I? Instead of saying, who am I, say, who am I not? Who ain't I?
we can. The thing is, we discover what we are. The who is the misnomer. There's no who. There absolutely.
Yeah, but what? And what is just a perception for its own sake, or something like that. You're saying, or what is the what?
It's just what happens with the confluence of all this stuff. Is there seems to be a who here, and we project that there must be a who there. In other words, since I think that I'm here and I'm in charge of this, then it's very easy for me to project that there must be a God out there, and it must be in charge of everything outside of my.
It's another who, huh?
Another who. That's it. Because that's my model. That's the model I know about. Is that
big who?
Yeah, the big who. I mean, it sounds like Dr. Seuss, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So.
Well, somehow, I mean, we're born. I don't know how we're born, anyhow, but I mean, we find ourselves living in the interval. And if we had a skill to the interval, I mean, why do people complain?
Oh, because it's resistance to the now. It's just because they're listening to inside their heads. They're not. We don't live in. We talk about living in what is and living in the now. We've never spent a half a minute in the now. We've never spent any time in what is. We spend all of our time in what isn't. What isn't is this.
Yeah. That's
right?
What I say. Or I don't even say all or half or what. I just say we can't know what the ratio is. You know, even if it's very, very subtle, still it's interpreted.
You lost me on ratio.
It doesn't show up. It doesn't show up because without distinctions, I don't think things show up. Okay, a spaceship might come down, but you know, you'd say, oh, that's a big object out in the air. You'd still have some kind of description for it, right?
Not without language.
No, with language. I'm saying that the human life in the interval is based on language.
Okay. The human, that's exactly, we're in perfect agreement there. We're in perfect agreement there. Is that all of this is based on language. And as I name it, I invent it. And I invent it as I go. It's just... Yeah,
but I mean, can't you even invent the greater whole?
At
least a lot of people are taking it that way, for sure, you know, because when it's shared that way, people grab it where they can grab it, and they grab it as a concept, and
they do.
They're inventing the greater whole.
But
and they're believing totally in the greater whole, you know, and maybe they had an experience or two too, where they kind of phased off, right? Okay, so like an experience of awakening that you say is realizing I'm not this. It's a disassociation, right? You're disassociated from the Fred unit.
It's not just, yeah, that is true. That's the first part. That's the first part, and that's as far as some people go. But that's certainly not all as far as awakening goes, because first we discover what we're not, and that's what we hear so much about. But then we can go on to discover what we are, and that's when things really begin to change. Because the problem is when we discover what we're not, we can't live a negative. When we just can't live I can't live what I'm not. In other words, there's nothing. This just then becomes totally fatalistic. I mean, it'll get, and it can get deep, bring about deep depression and a nihilistic attitude. So the understanding what we are, which is what's actually, I mean, it's not what we are is not other than this, but this is just a tiny little bit of what we really are, and and knowing what that really are, what we really are, that is critical. I mean, we may not know. I don't know what that is, but I know, so to speak, who it is. It's me, and it's me, and I'm it. And you can say the same.
Why do you even have to say me?
Well, yeah, it's not a me, but it's not even a me. That's correct. But it's a once we jump into language, we have to use language as a dualistic tool. So the minute that we open our mouths, now we're off in duality, and we're not telling the truth. It's impossible to tell the truth using language. I mean,
Well, I mean, that's kind of like a summary that's been used a lot, you know. Okay.
Is that right?
Like I would say a lot of things in duality are not really two things, right? Okay, if you say blame and forgiveness, that's two things. And you might say, okay, well, I'm trying to forgive, and I'm forgiving and I'm forgiving. Forget forgiving, just stop blaming, right? And what is blame? That's also one thing too. It's just like offloading your responsibility of your life and saying they done it to me.
Well, they're two ends of the same stick. That's it. I mean, blame and forgiveness are the same thing. They're two ends of the same stick. You can't have one. It's just like this. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I suppose, right, but you don't need either, right, is what I'm saying. It's just, I never forgive anyone because I don't blame anyone. It just doesn't come up. It doesn't come on the screen.
That's an unusual experience for a human being.
Well, it's just a decision. It's so easy. It's just a distinction that you can make up, you know. You could just say, oh, I realize it. Why should I blame anyone? And even if it seems that way. Okay, blame is from justice and injustice, right? Because then you say, oh, my God, they shouldn't have been doing that to me. Yeah. And so then the blame, right? Mm-hmm. And then you remember, they really, really, really did it. They really did it, you know? And so then you can't stop blaming because it's the truth. You know, you say, that was the truth because I didn't make this up, you know? But it's just a waste. It's all acentric perception, you know, and it's interfering with your centric perception. You're just throwing your attention on and your life blood, your life force. You're throwing it onto acentric perception, and your centric perception in a murky brown for no good reason. You're destroying your life for no. When you realize that, you don't blame anyone for if it was the truth or not. What's the difference? He's gone, and I'm free.
Well, all of this stems from really, the way that I would view it, and I'm in agreement with what you just said, of course. But what I'm saying is that there's something a little bit more fundamental than that. Is that when we talk about that judgment, their judgment can't arise in the absence of a benchmark, in the absence of a center. There simply is no judgment. So when I know who I am and I'm operating from there, then I don't blame and blame just that. There's no reason to release blame. It's because it's never invented. It's never constructed. So it's just a matter of seeing that this is the way things are. And actually, in the end, I mean, I'm not saying there aren't people that need to be separated from us in society and things like that. I'm not saying any of that. But I'm saying that on the larger view, I mean, none of us can blame anything for anybody. I mean, it's all just happening. It's all just happening. You know, it's not like I'm thinking up evil ways to do things. I'm just always out there, you know, doing what I think is just right for this unit. I don't even think about stepping on other people's toes. I just step on them because they're in my way as I'm, right? I mean, that's just the way of it. You know, I'm just trying to satisfy this unit's cravings. And I think that's what this unit's here for, is to satisfy its cravings. I don't have any other idea why it's here, because it's all about...
Okay, I'll give you another idea.
Huh?
I'll give you another idea.
What?
It's here to investigate its cravings and discover their origin.
Well, it's
right?
here to live them out. Yeah, I see
No,
what you're
no, not
saying.
live them out. To investigate them. Yeah, okay. You
It
investigate them
is
by
living
living
out
with them and
explain.
playing with them. You play with them and you act them out, and then you don't act them out, and you withhold yourself from them. You try all the different angles so to see exactly what the pull and the push is. But when you start investigating your cravings, which the cravings are your conditioning, oh, you realize so much. And then, okay, I had asked, like, why do people complain? People complain because they feel powerless. You know, they're doing it to me. It's all a blame thing. And so then they complain where they can't act. You know,
People can.
okay, if your car's broke, you take it to the mechanic. If your roof leaks, you patch it up. You know, if you offend someone, you apologize. So that then you can act. When you're in those ranges where you can act, you just fix it. You know, you don't complain.
People complain because that's how you keep ego. That's how ego lives. That's how it stays alive. Complaint is the food that keeps ego alive. Because I can tell you that when I'm with someone and I actually I don't even have to wake them up sometimes, but certainly when I do, or when when I help somebody to wake up, the language is so not quite accurate. So when that happens, I mean, I can tell them, can you find a problem? And they cannot find a problem. And the reason is that if I don't know who I am, if I don't know what I am, and I don't even know what's going on here, which I do not, then the great news is I can't possibly know what should be going on here. And without a comparison, there's no judgment. There's no judgment. There's just this. There's just this. What is? That's what's here. And there are actually no alternatives to what is. Not. There's just what is. There's not a. But we live up here complaining because the complaint is this what isn't, which is that it shouldn't be raining. That man should be driving faster than he is because according to this benchmark, that's the way it's seen. You're not seeing this.
Well, you know, I don't think that we're so wrapped up in our own cravings. And
Oh,
I
we're
think we
here
can
because of
investigate them. We can investigate them, and I think we can, we can have a really satisfying life in the interval. In the interval means in the thought process, right? And I think we can gather our forces and gather our attention and be more and more and more and more centric.
So
more centric.
who is it that's actually living in this?
Doesn't matter. It's just happening. Okay, let it just be happening. If you want to put a magic on it or something like that, but I was just having extra useless distinctions. It's just happening that, okay, and with words you can coach people to move toward the centric and move away from the acentric. And then, I don't know, maybe it's just a belief, just call it an experiment. If you're focused on your life, there's a growth. And then knowing who you are and all those things are infinitely more possible. It's an experiment to see if that's true. And you can justify that experiment just by saying, oh, well, I lived 40 years with acentric perceptions and drifting around in fantasy. Why don't I just try to keep my perceptions on what seems to appear here and work with it and realize that I do have power for action in the interval, which is like a thought process. And just do that, and then until your life is so satisfying that you have to go to the next step. It's just like, it's so easy. Like my life is just like no matter what, it works, right?
We can't.
And I don't rest there, you know. But I mean, that's a good plateau to launching pad for where I don't know.
Let me say that from
here.
Again, the way I see it is that we can't investigate our cravings until we first had them, and the reason that we are here is the result of these cravings. I mean, there's some kind of package. We can look at it. We can call it DNA. We can look and see that there's some kind of package that moves up the line for, at least in theory, for thousands of years. I mean, we can trace the DNA that's in this body back to Africa. So there's something that moves. We don't need rebirth. We don't need, all of that. We could call DNA karma and it'd be the same thing. So, and I don't even know what I was talking about now.
Well, karma is just tendencies, right? And then if you do the same thing as
Oh,
yesterday,
yeah,
you
yeah,
do
yeah.
that, you get the same result. So then you could call it, oh, that's my karma, right? But I
So
mean, just
what I
do
was going to
something
say
different, right?
is that we can't investigate our cravings until we have them, and the reason that we're here is that that package, karmic package, DNA package, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. But that package, I just call it the package. I don't use any adverbs or adjectives. So that that package comes is blooms again because of the desires. And now once we're here and once we're out there fulfilling these desires, we may begin to notice patterns within that. One of which is the fact, every time I get something, it doesn't satisfy me for more than about a moment. Is that whatever I get, I noticed I don't have what I have, what I want, no matter what it is. If I get that girl, I laugh and I say that's the reason that hookers and spiritual teachers charge up front, is that because something is the most valuable to us before we get it. I think that hookers and spiritual teachers are the oldest and the second oldest profession.
Yeah. Okay, I'll say this now. Like, I just see if this makes any sense, and I'll just say it to look at it myself, right? And say, okay, like I live in Asia,
Yeah.
in Thailand, and the cost of living is different here. And then so many people, Thai people, there's 60 million, are living a life and raising a family and so on maybe $10 a day or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So then I have a small pension, and I would say by living in Thailand, I'm in financial balance.
Yeah.
I'm in financial balance. So I got something that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's not getting old at all. It's a joy. Every day it's a joy. Every last day, right? And so then it's totally satisfying from now till doomsday, right? Forever.
Oh,
As far as I can see.
from now to doomsday, and that's so. When is doomsday?
It's part of the interval when the lights go out, right? It's just thoughts.
So you're able to. Well, you're just simply able to project your life much more accurately than I'm able to project mine. Because I have no idea what's going on.
I don't know. I did a medical check, and they said pretty good for you. So I don't have any scares.
Yeah, I'm having one done next Tuesday. I'll report in what they say. I don't know if I don't know if I'm in great health or not, but I'm alive. I'm alive.
No, I'd never gone, because it costs too damn much in the West, but here, for $500, you can do the full slate.
Wow, that's great. Yeah.
And you could do it for probably $250 if you go to the hospital that doesn't speak that much English. But Westerners think 500 is a super bargain for every kind of test,
And they know that. And those Westerners, we speak English, we can charge them double. And that's great.
I don't complain, I don't complain ever.
No, that's good.
And I think we can coach people not to complain, and we can coach people to be more centric in their attention span, where they put their attention.
We can. Yeah. Well, we sort of can, in the sense, in a way, that's what I do. Is that by helping people to see the way things really are, that automatically reduces our complaint level.
That's good.
It also significantly lowers our fear level, and a lot of our complaints arise out of our fears.
Okay, I'll put out that another distinction since I'm having such a good time.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Okay, well, what's a feeling? It's like a negative thought. If you say if you have kind of like a long dark tunnel story about anything, you feel bad about it. In other words, I'm saying that your bodily contraction is connected directly to your thoughts about wherever you think you are, right? Whether you're in centric perception or acentric perception. And those feelings, or the bodily contraction, fears are construed around those. And so then you can manage your bodily contraction, totally manage, by restoring You tell a more open story where there's more room to maneuver, and you realize you actually do have an action point here, which might be waiting, you know. But anyhow, it's certainly not worrying, and it's certainly to loosen your contraction even a little bit. Just a little bit more than yesterday is all that's needed.
So you're in control of your contractions?
I am.
So
I'm not in control with the you know, the moment, like they pop in, but I can release them.
Man, I froze up there for a second.
I don't know who am I that's doing this, but I do it all the time.
So when you say that, you know, I got to play devil's advocate, you know.
Yeah,
so,
go for it. Go for it.
So when you say that I do this all the time, I mean, are you talking about that Richard actually controls Richard?
I don't know. It just happens when I'm here. I'm here. I'm awake. So things are coming in, the sense perceptions.
When you say you're there and you're awake, who are you speaking to there?
Well, I don't have a who.
Richard?
You know, I don't need a who. You know, I can have a Richard or not a Richard. It doesn't really seem like a big point.
I just want you to say. Notice that you did say.
I said I. I just means like, okay, I have a record. You know, whoever I is, there's a record of a continuity, and this continuity is Chris and I. And you know, if we didn't have the continuity, probably life would be difficult. You know, we wouldn't be very functional. And then we'd be living in the so-called moment, right? No continuity, because we wouldn't have any memory or any way to recognize anything or any way to, there'd be no patterns or nothing, right?
So there's a sense of continuity. There's a sense that we can't really know if there's continuity, but no,
it's made up. It's made up, you know. It's a thought process. It's a thought process. That's the two distinctions I made: live in the moment, which never happens, I say, and living in the interval, which is the human condition. You know, we live in the interval, which is a kind of a mind, sense, perception mix. It's a big mix.
Yeah.
Big soup.
Okay.
So then I say we live in the interval. Why reject that? Why reject that and say, oh my God, my interval is no good? You know, I wished I could be enlightened. You know, and then you go into acentric perceptions. And then you get all kinds of feelings about that, and you get a little experience, a taste here and not there, where you felt really good for a while. And then you really believe that it exists and all that as a different thing, as a goal, as a place, as like another perception. It's not here now, and but it is, right? But anyhow, I'm leaving now so often that I wouldn't know if it was here or not, right?
So tell me about that, what you just said there. I'm not sure that I follow you.
I'm leaving now. Well, that's the thought process, you know. Like that's I'm used to. I have a belief in the value of acentric perception, because that's where new things can come from, and teachers tell me about their life and how they did it, and that's all acentric to me. And so somehow I have a belief that that's good. But the only reason I would ever go to acentric perception is because I reject my centric perception. I say it's a ball of wax, you know. And whatever I try to do there, I'm stuck, and it keeps repeating, and all these things, and I got a bad karma, and all these explanations and descriptors that tie me tighter and tighter to powerlessness, and not having any.
It ties who tighter and tighter to powerlessness? Which powerful one does it make feel like it's powerless?
Well, it's just a centric perception, you know. Like whenever there, it's like I don't know. As I walk around town, I think there's somebody watching and looking and seeing things, and ideas pop up and say, "Oh, that's that. This is this. That's that. Oh, they must be doing that over there." And you know, whoever is cataloging all that stuff, it's not you. It's not the man on the street. It's next to me going.
I would agree that it's not the man on the street.
Huh?
I said I would agree that it's
another man on the street. It's only one man on the street. The one that's saying that there's an I, or whether there's an I or not. Who cares? But it's just all happening under my purview. Is that a word? Anyhow, like while I'm here, it happens, right? While I'm not here, who knows?
So, when is it that you're not here?
When the
I
lights are
find that
out, right?
I find that I can't get out of here. I'm not trying to get out.
When the lights are out, I go to sleep. Maybe I dream or maybe not, but anyhow, then then the next thing I know, it's 8 in the morning, and I'm late for the talk with you, but I wasn't.
You're right. So when you wake up in the middle of the night, is there before let me ask you this: is your life maybe just too flowy to I mean it may be too relaxed and good right now. I don't know, but is there ever a sense for you that I'm going to bed and I'm really looking forward to some sleep, not just from physical tiredness, but more or less just a rest from this?
Okay, let me think a sec. I I don't run a lot of thoughts, and I do, but I mean, okay, I get tired of looking at the computer. I've been buying a whole bunch of short stories and books. I get tired of reading. We're not watching television. My girlfriend looks at Google Plus a lot, and sees what other people are, and takes a lot of photos and posts them all. And she can look at Google Plus for hours. I can't do that. And so then I don't know. Then I think, okay, well, let's go to bed.
So
Maybe 10 o'clock. It may be later, but I tend to sleep long.
so let's look at this for just a minute. I mean, it just because right now Richard and Fred are talking. We know we're here. We know I think there's certainly a sense of Fred here and certainly a sense of Richard there. And then you go to bed tonight, and at some point you get tired, and we don't know exactly how it happens, but we give up the known for the unknown, and we go from wakefulness into light sleep. And I would say that the Richard is still there in light sleep because we're very easily disturbed in light sleep. There's something still running, like a cat with one eye open. And then we fall into dream sleep, and I'm going to say that the Richard is still there in dream sleep because those dreams are going to be either about Richard or Richard's going to be watching them, one of the two. Does this sound about right?
Well, I don't know. At night, I don't think I'm not aware of dreams at night. Only in the morning, in a kind of groggy state, right? And then if my body's feeling good in bed, then I just think, oh yeah, like let it just relax. And then those thoughts run, but I don't.
So
really,
you don't dream? You don't dream?
At night, I'm not used to recalling.
Whenever you dream. Well, no, I don't. I don't know
No,
what
in
you're.
the morning. In the morning. One time I interviewed some dream specialists, and they said the only real dreams that you interpret are the ones at night. You got to train yourself to wake up and jot down things, and the morning dreams don't count. And the morning ones are the only ones I really know about, right? And it's just kind of running. Thoughts are running. They're really not. They're inane, and they don't have feelings associated with them. If I'm falling or something, I really don't feel afraid. And they're usually, I don't know, really mild.
So my point is that there's a sense of Richard right now, is there not?
Yeah.
There's a sense of Richard when you're in your bed. There's some kind of Richardness still there when you're.
I can be called back. Let's say I can be called back from sleep, but I always could be called back from sleep, no matter what. If somebody who shakes me or something, they can always call me back.
So,
but then I don't know if that means there's a sense of me or not. I mean, somehow there's a sense of me somewhere because I wake up in the morning and I remember what I did yesterday, what I want to do today, and who I am.
In deep sleep, is there a sense of Richard?
Well, I mean, I don't know. You'd have to project to say that. You'd have to project and say that because when I get up in the morning, I know who I am. There must have been a continuity in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But there's never been an experience of a sense of me in deep sleep.
So that's it. So there's no experience of Richard in deep sleep.
Yeah.
There is still a there's still there is a sense of continuity. There not there is a, I mean, I have a lot of people. I mean, it doesn't sound like you'd be one, but an awful lot of my clients tell me they love to go to sleep because there's a sense that we can like dump Fredness for a little while here. You know, that the mind is doing its thing, da 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 da. It's driving us
Well,
nuts.
they're worried. They're into all kinds of those thought patterns that contract their body, right? And it's tiring. It's just tiring. When they learn that they have control over that they can, and how do you control it?
Who is it that's got?
I don't really find that as a good question, you know. For me, that's kind of like a useless question to put my attention on because it doesn't go anywhere.
Which question?
But I mean,
which question is useless? I didn't hear it.
Who is it? Who is it? That's
who is it?
Who is the question, or what is it that's doing it? It's just doing that. I just accept it. You know, whatever it's here. And so then accept it instead of saying questioning it, because your questioning is going back a step and going into the mind. Who is it?
No,
I don't need to be in my mind about that.
It is not going into the mind. It's leaving the mind. Where does
that question come from if it's not in the mind? Where does that question come from if it's not in the mind? If it's in a book, you read it, so then you remember it.
No,
it doesn't show up, that question.
It's not the question. I'm not saying the question doesn't come from the mind, but I'm saying that the recognition that question can bring about, that's not in the mind. That's not about the mind. That's
okay. I like
the
way you said that.
Beyond it.
The recognition that question can bring about, but also maybe it won't bring about a recognition. So
it certainly doesn't have to, but it certainly doesn't. I mean, it doesn't do it automatically. I can tell you that. I did it for years.
Yeah. So then if you just take those years, you say you did 20 years and 1 year it worked, then that means 95% of the time it doesn't work, so 95% of the people asking that question are coming up empty, or they come up with projection.
So this is the reason that what I'm doing is showing people I'm showing people awakening, I'm showing people enlightenment. I'm not trying to pass something along in the sense of like, here's what, you know, here's my best pointers, because that's what everybody does. We just point to it because it's the best we can do. I get that, so long as we're using language. But what I found out is that we can use language to move beyond language. We can use the mind to go beyond the mind, and I do it virtually every day. So there's no question in my mind that it's effective. I mean, it's effective one after the other. It's like clockwork. I mean, I will tell you, I had a woman here this past weekend, and she flew here. I don't know when you say from where, but she's the assistant of a very well-known spiritual teacher, and no matter how long she's been around him and how tightly she's been involved, she just can't hear. She couldn't hear that part of what he was saying. And I know this teacher. I know that they are clear. I know that they are clear. I know they're awake. I know they're clear. But for some reason, that clarity was not like just hopping off of the teacher's shoulder and onto hers, or from the teacher's head to hers, or whatever you want to put it. So she knows lots and lots of other teachers on a first name basis, has spent lots and lots of time with them, and when she came here, she woke up in about 2 hours. Now, there's something to be said for show and tell versus tell and tell. That's what I'm talking about. And and this is a daily occurrence. I mean, it really. I mean, people that have been in spirituality.
So, is there a period of adjustment for those people that are waking up?
Yes. It's
so that at first they don't know how to take it, and they go less functional instead of more functional, right? So it reflects in life as kind of like a negative.
It can. Anything can happen. It can also immediately reflect in life as a positive. If you take someone who's scared of death and show them that there's nothing to it, and they lose their fear of death, that's a big plus, and that can happen.
Oh yeah, I see that now. Yeah. So then it releases a lot of tension.
Yeah, that's right. So it just so it can be a positive. It can show up any way it does, but by and large, what I've discovered is I mean, you got to be. I used to say in recovery that you got to be pretty sick if I'm the doctor, going to be the doctor. But, you know, but then I would always follow that up with you qualify. And what
so
I
that
found,
it works a lot for people that are tens.
it works a lot for people who are anyway. It just simply works a lot for people who are not awake to their true nature, who have not recognized their true nature, and yet and have been on this path again for decades or whatever, and they're frustrated. I find a tremendous amount of frustration because I will
That's
tell you,
already a contraction. You know, that's a huge contraction because what are they doing? They're leaving half their attention or a good chunk of it on
the problem is,
the eccentric, saying it shouldn't be this way. It shouldn't be this way. It
That's
shouldn't.
right.
One time I had an experience.
That's
I
right.
should get there. Look, everyone around me is waking up, but I'm not. So then it's all a big rejection of.
Or I had a wonderful experience
of the here
30
now.
years ago. You know, that
Yeah.
there's that other thing, which is that I had a wonderful experience 30 years ago. It completely changed my outlook on life. It's been fabulous, but I've noticed that it's like a drug. I've been trying to get back to that experience for 30 years, and I just can't get there. And there's a whole lot of frustration in that. That happened to me. It wasn't 30 years, but it was 14 years in between my first look at truth and then when I had a much larger look at truth. And that was and part of that part of that time was spent drunk, which I didn't think about it too much then. But part of that time was spent in a very sincere spiritual search. It was frustrating, and yet.
So anyhow, you said a really interesting thing there because first of all, you're saying give an experience, right, instead of just a pointer. And then you said that sometimes it acts like a drug. So then, okay, a drug is an experience. People take drugs, and I think they're getting an experience. And then, of course, that's just on heroin addicts or cocaine addicts or whatever, but also just ayahuasca. People searching for spiritual truth, or they used to take magic mushrooms, or peyote, or go down to
right.
They do a ceremony in South America somewhere.
They're trying to create some sort of a catalyst, and that may and who I don't know. I did a lot of hallucinogenics, and I loved them, and I think they're probably tied into my spiritual surge, in the sense that they certainly woke things up in me. But I think those things they just woke them up further. Those things were awakening me prior to that. Those things have been awakening me, as I look back on it, apparently all of my life. Not that I remember all of my life, but of the part of my life that I can remember, then this thing has been present. But the drugs accentuated that. But the drugs are not a necessary catalyst. I haven't used drugs in 30 years. I mean, a long time, and they are an unnecessary link in that chain. It appears to be a causal link, but there is no causal link. In the same way,
everything's a cause in a way, right? In other words, whatever happens,
everything is the cause of everything.
And so you could always call it a cause, right? But I mean,
everything is the cause of everything else. If there's anything, if that's causal, then that's true. That everything is the cause of everything else. Because what I like to say is that not only is everything connected, but it's so connected. The only reason we can't see all the strings here is that there's nothing but strings. That's all there is. It's just strings. It's like Indra's net. Just.
Well, I don't know. I think the reason we can't see things are because we lack distinctions to name them. And if we can't name them, I don't know. They don't show up as far as I know. And then, if you say the infinite universe or search for a boundary, you're not going to find a boundary because there isn't one. It just thins out. It thins out where there's no distinctions, and then there's just nothing, right? And then when you get some more distinctions, whether they're spiritual distinctions or whether they're, physical, material distinctions, then you see farther. And then at first there was only stars, right? And then we got a distinction. Oh, there's galaxies, and then those stars became galaxies, right?
But I noticed that as far as we push, wherever we push to, suddenly we find out there's more, don't we? In other words, if I push to what you're talking about is distinctions, and if I'm trying to find a boundary if I'm trying to find a boundary to this sense of being, we could call it, if I'm trying to find a boundary to that and I go out, I notice that no matter how far I go out, the that it keeps going. You know, if I think it's out to this edge, once I get to that edge, it's further, it's gone.
First of all, you know, like all that stuff is acentric perception. So then why even put your attention there? You know, withdraw your attention there and put it on what seems to be here and now. And I'd say you'd be way further better off, you know, instead of thinking like how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, or how many galaxies are
I'm with you on the
practical the sky. Those are kind of like really wasted efforts for me, because like you got, you know, 4,000 weeks to put your attention somewhere. Well, that's 80 years, you know. So let's say you'd be 4,500 weeks, or if we want to go 100, you know, we could live 5,000 weeks, something like that, right? And so then I don't have that many weeks left, right? So where am I going to put my attention this week? And
is it your?
I'm not going to be wasting it on.
Is it actually your attention? I mean, is it Richard's attention?
Well, somehow it seems like I could direct it. I can get interested in things by my interests. If I say something is interesting, I'll start looking at it more and more and more. And if I say something is not interesting whatsoever, and I have every reason to just leave it go, because I have, and if I define myself as having that power, I can leave it go.
And but look at this from this standpoint. I mean, when you find something interesting, I mean, how did that happen? Didn't you just find it interesting? I mean, you don't make a decision, do you? I mean, I found girls interesting when I was like, you know, about 12 or however old.
Yeah, and then you find them uninteresting when they nag at you a lot, right? And so then, but it's all that has to do with experience. Okay, my girlfriend likes to go fishing.
Yeah.
So I found fishing interesting.
Yeah.
But I just did it kind of like to be with her and all that stuff, and to see what she was up to.
What I'm suggesting is that that attention is not your attention, and it's not confined to 80 weeks. That unit is confined to 80 units, 80 weeks, or whatever it is. How many weeks is it? You know,
4,000 weeks is 80 years, right?
So that unit is limited to 4,000 weeks of what appears to be its attention. But what I'm telling you is,
well, you know, on the 5,000th week, I'll know that when I get there. I don't have to know that now.
Yeah, but you're still not missing. You're still not hearing my point, which is that what I'm saying is that attention itself is the key here, and it's not Richard's attention. Richard's being you, because what it sounds like when you're saying what you're saying. I don't know what you mean, but it sounds to me like what you're saying is that Richard uses Richard's attention, and what I'm suggesting is that Richard is being used by attention as a mechanism.
No, I'm not saying that at all, because like if you know, for long periods, I just I didn't make any decisions. In other words, I just stood pat on the decisions I had already made and thought that's the best. And so then everything happened the same, right? My attention went in the same places, and life unfolded in the same ways. And so then I would call that stasis, or you know, being stuck, or you know, stuck in beliefs, basically. And when I started to open, just like you said, I don't know who I am, what is happening, or what, you know, I maybe didn't blast it open like in one fell swoop, but I just started to release it a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. And I released it by descriptors, by releasing descriptions that were fearful and stuff. And fearful means basically that in that sector I'm not in control, I have no action step. There's nothing I can do there. So then I can do two things. One is I can steer away from it if my life has that much flexibility where I can steer, like I can move to Thailand. And the other is I can just grin and bear it, right? Just be resigned.
Yeah.
And grumble about it, and then find friends that are willing to grumble too. So we get together and we just say how bad the weather is, and how bad the politics are, and how bad they're doing everything to us, and the economic system is and you know, the Wall Street bankers and you know, the Fed is making money for their own pockets, you know, and then taking it out of ours, basically, taking it out of our grandchildren's, unborn grandchildren's pockets.
Let me point out. Let me jump in here and tell you that we've gone over our hour, so
Yeah.
we want to be looking for right now. We want to kind of be looking for a graceful exit, so that we don't keep our readers too long. The I think you could you could just about cut this conversation anywhere in it. I mean, it's because it's just it's
okay. I'll ask you a question and then I'll let you finish.
okay.
Okay, like at a certain point, a person says, "I'm awakened," right? It seems like an event, right? Or it seems like a turning point, or you talk like about it as if it was, right? And then that point, really, I don't know if it has any external evidence whatsoever. It's internal evidence. And so then it comes across as a declaration. I declare I'm awake, and that there is such a thing as awakening.
Well,
right. And so then how do you decide to, and I declare you're awake. You just awakened. So then how do you decide to declare that?
If the person, like if you and I were to do a session, and at the end of it, then Richard declares that he's awake, that's bullshit. But what's happening there is when I'm in a session with someone, I'm not talking to a client. I'm always talking to me. And when I find myself when conscious awareness over here finds itself talking to conscious awareness over there, then both sides know that awakening has occurred. So it's because it is as they say, it is truly as they say, it is self-confirming. But we know. I mean, in my position, a client knows, and I know. And it doesn't mean, but the thing is that it's not the end. What we're saying, I'm awake. What we mean is that I have clicked on the light switch in a room, which is great. But that's going to flicker, and there are endless gradations of clarity within that. I see people wake up very clearly, and I see people wake up not so clearly. I've had like 3 in a row people who just woke up really because what happens is we see what we are, but as far as accepting what we are, that's really occurs on a sliding scale. Some people see the truth, but they see it on this end of the sliding scale because they're not ready to tell themselves the truth yet. They're not ready to hear it from themselves, much less me.
Okay, well, let me add another thing in there then. Okay, seeing the truth is not just an idea or an image. It's a feeling too.
Well, you can't actually see it. That's just a turn of phrase. All you can do is be it.
Yeah, but it brings with it a feeling.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying.
It's like a release, right? Woo.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. It's a good feeling. So then that feeling somehow is not really transmitted. It's just like a temporary phenomena, and then when that feeling goes sour or contracts again, then you lose awakeness, right?
No, that feeling has nothing to do with awakeness. That feeling is simply that blissful candy and all that stuff. Maybe hallucinations. We like to call them visions, but when they have to do with spirituality, but they're just hallucinations, man. And when we have, we get lost in the bliss and the hallucinations and all that stuff. But none of that has anything to do with awakening, not directly. That's just the vehicle. It's not the package. And that's what happens is we all get hung up on the vehicle and we ignore the package, and the package is simply the certain knowledge that, oh my God, there's only one thing going on and I'm it. And once that comes in and it moves from an intellectual understanding to an experienced understanding, then even if that comes and goes, there's something that's been seen that can't be unseen. I can take somebody. I have a client in Australia. She kind of comes and goes as a client, and she kind of comes and goes in terms of clarity too. But the first time I woke her up, and she had had an awakening experience before, maybe several, but she was dead asleep. The first time I worked with her, it took me, 2.5 hours to wake her up. And the next time I worked with her, it took me maybe which was several months later after she had gone back to sleep, took me maybe 90 minutes, maybe an hour, something like that. And then just last week, she had just gotten moved out of it again, and she's back in the, I mean, when I touched base with her, I said, "How you doing?" She said, "Well, I'm not awake. Other than that, I'm doing fine." And and then by working with it, I mean, I love that honesty, but as a result of that, it took me about 10 minutes to wake her up, because this thing that has been seen is not ever unseen.
You gotta take that away from her. The fact that she's gonna pay. She's got a life that's pretty good, and she got a black bandage on it. She pastes a black band on it that says, "I'm not awake." And then it's a denial. It's a terrible denial,
and we are in total agreement.
Yeah, and then I'm just saying, you don't have to awake just to take that black bandage off and stop denying your life and become more centric, more centric.
No. We're not in total agreement now. Because
you can do it incrementally. You can take it from me.
But that incrementalness.
Who cares? I don't know. I don't ask that question. I just say that. Go ahead.
So that incrementalness. I mean, I can tell you that I know one of the most famous spiritual teachers around, and he's told me himself that he never had that moment. He never had like the event. The event is actually unnecessary. It can happen incrementally. We can only notice it after it's happened. We can look back. Oh man, this is something I can see.
Incrementally means you don't even realize what's happening. Then later,
that's what it is. We're not doing it incrementally.
A couple years later, then you think, "Oh God, what have I been doing?" It's been pretty cool. Yeah, but I mean, I do that too. I mean, somehow I make choices. Every moment I make a choice.
Oh, we all appear to make choices. I'm in complete agreement with you. There appears to be free will, and what I always tell people is, as long as it feels like there's somebody there and that they have decisions to make, just make sure.
Use them wisely. Use them wisely. That's all.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because that's what keeps.
As long as they appear and seem like it works, use them wisely. And don't throw them away. Don't throw them in the trash can and say, tomorrow's another day.
Hey, that's a perfect place.
That's a bingo.
I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
All right. Have a good week. See you later.
Okay.
Thanks
See you later.